So today I'll be showing you how to install Linux on an old computer, for example, let's say a 2010 MacBook. So I'll be using a rather old computer from 2007. It's a HP netbook. I know those weren't pretty popular. They were pretty bad as well. So the one which I'm using has 1 gigabyte of RAM. So as you can see currently, I've navigated to the Arch Linux website. So I'll be using Arch Linux for this installation of Linux. So previously it was running Windows 7. It was pretty slow. So it was struggling to do simple tasks. So Arch Linux in itself is a pretty small Linux distribution, only about 700 megabytes, has a minimum requirement of 256 MB of RAM, which is more than enough for our 1 gigabyte RAM PC. So now I'm navigating to rufus.ie, which is basically the gold standard in ISO flashing. So what it does, it flashes the ISO to the USB, and it allows you to boot it from any computer. What you do have to be careful with is that computers these days do have secure boot installed, enabled by default, and that can cause problems in booting Linux. So certain distributions won't be allowed on it. Although Ubuntu and Fedora, in my experience, work perfectly fine with secure boot, so that's fine. So I've just downloaded the portable version of Rufus because it doesn't leave behind any trash like downloading a proper install if it would. So that's just what I'm doing, but you can download it normally if you want. So now both the Linux distro and Rufus have installed, so I'm going to run Rufus. So you can just click yes there, so it's not going to do anything to your computer, it's not a virus. So then you just click select the ISO image, and for example I use Arch Linux, so just choose the Arch Linux ISO. So just leave all the settings alone. To be honest, you don't really need to touch anything else. You have to choose a disk at the top, which is the USB you want to flash, and you have to make sure that you're fine with losing the data, so a warning will come up. Also, you can choose either ISO image or DDoS image. It doesn't really matter, but DDoS is better for computers that don't have an operating system pre-installed on them. So like I said, it'll remove all your data, so you have to be fine with that. So I'm fine with that. I'll just click OK. So you just have to click OK for everything that comes up from now. So it's just saying multiple partitions have been detected, so it's going to delete them. So like it said, even if you have made multiple partitions on a single USB, Rufus will only detect it as one USB, so it will erase the entire thing no matter how many partitions you've made. So just be aware of that. So I'll just wait for this to finish, and after it's done, you can just go straight to booting on the PC. I'll go through that with you now as well. So now I've inserted the USB into the computer. So you begin by pressing escape as soon as it boots. So it might differ from computer to computer. On some computers it might be F12 or whatever. So then click F9 and choose SanDisk, and now you'll see this come up. So this will be the Arch Linux installation main page. So you just click the top one, which is install onto the hard drive. So you can see it's doing that now. It's just installing, so this will take probably a couple of minutes depending on, like I said, the speed of your USB. So for example, if you have USB 2.0, it might take longer than USB 3.0 because it's like a slower speed, but of course this is USB 1.0, so this took quite a long time. In fact, this is not actually the final installation. I actually decided to backtrack and use Damn Small Linux, DSL, because there was some problem with the networking on Arch Linux, so it wouldn't download. I think it's either a bug for 32-bit ones because it's not really well maintained since not many people use Arch Linux for 32-bit anymore. So I'll just switch. I'll show you the Damn Small Linux installation is identical to Arch Linux, to be honest. except for it's way smaller and way faster than Arch Linux. So I'll go through that in a minute. So unfortunately, I had to scrap Arch Linux because it wasn't working very well. For some reason, there was some compatibility issue with I think the processor was it. Yeah, because it's an Intel Atom, so it's only 2 threads to, I think, 1 core, which is not good. So to be honest, I'm now using damn small Linux, which is even smaller than Arch Linux, if you can believe it. So requires only 128 megabytes of RAM, and installation process is identical. So the previous stuff which you saw just applies the same here. So in fact it's also smaller in terms of size than Arch Linux. While Arch Linux was about 700 megabytes, damn small Linux is actually only 50 megabytes, which is tiny, which is comparable to some apps on Windows. So it's pretty small. So as you can see, it's pretty straightforward. All you have to just do is click enter, and here you can see it's just loading all the processes. This will probably take about 10-20 seconds to boot into the actual OS, so it's quite fast, straight off like booting from the USB. Installing damn small Linux is a similar process. You just type install instead of enter. So as you can see, it's just verifying all the devices and drivers, so it seems to be going fine. So as you can see, it's now booted into the OS. It's just loading now. So it automatically just loads a couple of applications. You can close those. So on the right, you can see there is actually a built-in process manager, so you can see how much RAM the OS is using. So if you look carefully, it's actually only using about 28 megabytes of RAM, 20-30 megabytes of RAM, which is tiny compared to something to the likes of Windows or even Android. You can barely run devices, as in this would struggle under Android as well. But on damn small Linux is running pretty well. So you can imagine running damn small Linux on a mobile phone from like 5-6 years ago, and it would be just running fine. So as you can see, even the CPU is barely struggling, and it's quite fast. It just takes a bit of time to load at first, but for example, if I try to load Firefox now, it's much faster because I gave it a little bit of time just to boot up. So Linux is basically ready for you to use, so we can try some painting now. So as you can see, it was quite quick to open Paint, the inbuilt version of Paint. It's also got a couple of other games and applications built in, but you can install others if you want. So let's just draw our masterpiece. Yes, that defines our computer, a potato. In fact, hackers did actually manage to install Linux onto Potato. That shows how versatile Linux is. In fact, it's kind of gruesome, but they also managed to install it on a horse, which is a bit weird, but yeah. Anyways, so that's damn small Linux. And it's made this previously struggling and potato computer much better and actually usable for everyday word processing, even maybe watching YouTube. So thanks for watching.